LSU baseball was out on the field at the box all 3 days this weekend. I had a chance to hang out on Saturday for a little bit and watch some baseball, and just a gorgeous weather weekend. And the excitement continues to just manifest itself in this town, no matter if it's just me going out to dinner and running into somebody that wants to talk about it, whether it's Twitter, whether it's group text message, or whether you go out and watch them scrimmage. I would guess, I'm not very good at this, by the way, but I know how many people the box seats. I would guess there were 800 people there on Saturday. You had LSU basketball coming up later that afternoon, and maybe that was a kind of make a day of it, go out and watch some baseball, then head over to some basketball. Maybe it was the weather. Maybe it's just the excitement level. It's probably a little bit of all of it, but it was packed at the box in terms of watching a scrimmage on Saturday. And I really enjoyed what I saw. I got to see Ty Floyd and Thatcher Hurd each extend and pitch, and those are two guys that I've told you I believe will be in the rotation on opening weekend. And the velocity from Floyd was there like we expect it to be. It was upwards of 95 the majority of his outing, sometimes touching 97. And he did throw a number of off-speed pitches. He was able to land a breaking ball for first pitch strikes. He was able to throw it and get some swings and misses. I thought he threw the ball pretty well. The control wasn't great. He did miss. He missed big a few times, meaning the catcher's having to overextend and catch it up over his head. So it wasn't a perfect outing for Ty Floyd, but the stuff just screams at you when you watch Ty Floyd pitch, and he certainly is an improved guy from the guy that we saw in February of last year, where he was literally throwing nothing but fastballs. And we know that he incorporated a breaking ball as the season went on, and when you saw him pitch against Tennessee in the SEC tournament, he threw a lot of off-speed pitches, because if you just go up there and throw fastballs against that lineup, it's going to be a pretty quick afternoon for you. So he looked pretty good. Thatcher Hurd, I thought, looked good as well. He's just a pitcher. He's got a changeup that he'll throw in any count. He's got a fastball that sits 93 to 95, most of the time right there around 94 miles an hour. He'll spin a breaking ball for sure. And the key with him is he looks healthy. He got touched up for one long homer. Gavin Dugas got him off the scoreboard in left field. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I thought Hurd looked good. It's funny, if that is your weekend rotation of Skeens and Hurd and Floyd, if that's your three guys, Hurd becomes the guy whose velocity is the lowest, and he throws 95 miles an hour. It's a loaded staff in terms of talent, but I thought those two guys looked very good. Each of them gave up one home run. Brady Neal hit one, and Gavin Dugas hit one. Speaking of Dugas, good to see him out there. He hasn't been healthy in a year plus. And every time he thinks he's going to come back, something else flares up. And he's had this deal with his eye that he's gotten looked at multiple times, and it's come back a couple of times. And he finally got to go out there and practice, and he was able to put a big swing on one and hit it off the scoreboard. He's an adequate second baseman. Does it look gorgeous out there at second base? No, not all the time, but he's capable of making all the plays, and I think he will find some ABs there at second base as time moves forward. But it was really good to see him out there. Paxton Kling was out there as well. Those are two guys that had missed a little bit of scrimmage time and practice time over the last couple of weeks. And both guys I saw when I went to the scrimmage earlier in the week last week were down in the bullpen tracking pitches while the pitchers were warming up in the bullpen. They were just standing there with the bat, not swinging, just watching pitches, which is kind of a sign that they're getting close to being able to go back there and resume live hitting. They were both able to go out there and scrimmage over the weekend, which was a very, very good thing to see. I think one of the other things I wanted to mention, Brady Neal hit the home run, as I talked about, hit it off Ty Floyd, got it up in the jet stream. And I don't know if temper expectations is the right word. I feel like when we talk about the catcher spot, which we have a bunch, Milazzo is the first name that comes up because he's the one proven commodity at catcher. You know that he's an elite defensive catcher, and he struggled on offense. And you know what Alex Milazzo is at this point in his career. You certainly hope the bat progresses. You hope he can be a productive piece of the lineup. Certainly not going to be asked to carry much of the workload at all in a loaded offensive lineup. But he's going to be out there, and you know what you're going to get from him. I think the tendency would be to to look at Brady Neal and just immediately contrast him with Alex Milazzo and go, well, Milazzo's the great defensive catcher, not a great offensive player. Neal's the offensive punch at catcher. Okay, well, comparatively speaking, yes. Brady Neal is a better hitter today than Alex Milazzo is. That is not breaking news, I don't think, to anybody. But most freshmen, now Bregman showed up and just hit like crazy, and that's just not normal. But most freshmen go through a little bit of a learning curve, and it's better to go through a learning curve if you're hitting eighth in a loaded lineup than it is if they ask you to come in and hit second, because you don't feel as much pressure. But Neal is a good hitter. He's also a freshman, and he's also a catcher, which takes a lot of your time to work with the pitchers and catch bullpens and work defensively and understand how to manage a game behind the plate, all the while getting up to speed, swinging the bat. Now, he went to IMG. He played on the travel circuit. He's been in the Perfect Game All-American game. So he's seen pitching near the level of what he's seen. I'm not telling you he faces Paul Skeens all the time in high school, but he's seen more high-level pitching than most high school players because of the level that he elevated to as a high school player that put him in position to do all those things I was talking about, to play at IMG and to go on the travel circuit and to play the Perfect Game All-Star games and all that kind of stuff. But I think if your inclination is to think, oh, well, Neal's he's going to come in there and just be a stud hitter, I think he's going to show moments like he did on Saturday when he pumped one out of the yard. But I also think there's going to be some struggles, and that's okay in a lineup that features Cruz and Morgan and White and Thompson, and the list goes on and on. You understand what you're talking about. But I think I want to maybe push back a little bit on the notion that Neal's like the offensive catcher. If you're going to make proclamations about Brady Neal, the first one I would go is he hits left-handed. And that gives you a huge leg up facing really good right-handed pitchers, certainly on Alex Milazzo, who hits from the right side of the plate. So that was very, very good to see. The infield defense, in my opinion, has been good as I've been out there. I've got some rabbit ears. I tend to maybe overreact to some of the things that I hear during season and narratives that get pushed. And last year, the defense was atrocious early in the season. I mean, just abysmal up in some awful weather up in Ruston against Louisiana Tech. Cautious some SEC games early, one against Arkansas where you couldn't turn a routine double play. You probably lost an Auburn game because ground ball got through the right side that shouldn't have. And it was certainly bad. But I want to kind of wipe the slate clean a little bit on infield defense. And let's just evaluate this team as they move forward. Don't heap the errors of last year's team immediately on this one, especially the ones that Jordan Thompson made in February and March. By now, if you're an LSU baseball fan, you listen to our shows, any of them, you know the narrative on Jordan Thompson. Had the surgery before the season, came out and played really poor defense, played better defense at the end of the year. That's what you know. I think he's going to be just fine at shortstop. He was really smooth in infield practice. I haven't seen him kick one around in really, I don't think I've seen him make an error in a scrimmage. I've not been at all the scrimmages, but I don't think I've seen him make an error. I think the infield defense is going to be pretty good on this team. We'll see what happens at second base, but I think Napolt and Merrifield are very, very good defenders. And I think Tommy White is going to do a pretty good job over at third base. Last point that I wanted to get to on LSU baseball over the weekend. We'll talk with Chris Demouy at 2 o'clock a little bit further in depth. Chris was out there all 3 days, so excited to get Demouy's thoughts on what he's seen from this team, especially on the mound. But last thing is Jared Jones. The freshman catcher is really making some waves. And I told you 3 weeks ago when I was having some discussions with some people inside the baseball program, I said, it doesn't sound like Jones is going to be a catcher because you got Milazzo and you got Neal, but are you going to get him some at-bats? You think he figures to get some at-bats early in the season? And the answer I got was have to. Have to. He's way too good a hitter not to get him out there and way too powerful a bat. I mean, he's going to slug. And he had an opposite field home run yesterday in the scrimmage. He's built like a brick house. I mean, he's just huge, and he's got big-time power. And I don't think he's going to catch very much, but they're going to have to get him some at-bats, whether that's at DH against left-handers and you let Jobert handle it against right-handers, whether he's going to play a little bit of first base, which he's been working at, Somewhere or another, they're going to find a way to get some February and March at bats to Jared Jones, because there's a possibility. I don't know if it's a likelihood, but there's a possibility he becomes a middle of the order bat on this team. Again, a possibility, maybe not a likelihood, but a possibility he becomes a power bat in the middle of this lineup. That's the kind of ceiling that he's got. And maybe the lights come on and it's college baseball and it's the SEC and he's not quite ready, but he's a big piece to next year's team. That's another thing that was communicated to me when we were talking about next year's team, which is not something we need to discuss on the air right now, but you start going through the names and go, well, you're going to have Tommy White will be back and Brady Neal will be back, and you're going to have Gavin Guidry, and you're going to have Paxton Kling. Oh, yeah, and Jared Jones. And he was mentioned right in that nucleus of next year's baseball team. So they love what they see from the big freshman catcher, and I would expect to see him early and often out there at the box. So nice night, nice weekend out at the box. Can't wait to talk to Demui about it at 2 o'clock, but we're getting close. We got one more weekend with no baseball until June. I think we can make it through. They got a pretty big football game that we're going to talk about a little bit later. It comes up on Sunday, but this will be the last weekend with no college baseball. So very, very much looking forward to all of that. Hey, thanks so much for watching the Hunt Palmer Show on YouTube. If you don't mind, throw us a like right below and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.